We are all familiar with the image of a poor and discontented artist. Geniuses are often wayward, moody, and not easy to get along to. History is full of such examples. But have you ever thought why?
Sensitivity seems to be the key characteristic of an artist. The thing is that sensitive people are more perceptive to everything, both physically and mentally. They generally perceive more information about the world and are forced to process vast amounts of it. They literally notice everything around them.
How the sunlight falls on greenery, how the material of a t-shirt feels on the skin, how snow crunches underfoot and the smell of a clean shirt on a person standing next to them in the elevator.
But they notice not only the external factors, ideas, moods, you can even say climate in the air.
What Jung called the collective unconscious. Rick Rubin calls it the source, a certain space that people create with their thoughts, words, and moods.
You know the moment when you and a person next to you simultaneously have the same thought, and the person says exactly what you were about to say? I think that's the thing too. So the more sensitive a person is, the better they pick up these signals as well. Thus, they can spot emergent trends and patterns.
And such a person feels the need to let it out, somehow express all the sensations that overflow. Some prefer to talk it out or write down their thoughts, others draw, and some play musical instruments.
A sensitive person is a kind of processing machine for society, or a receiver that converts invisible radio waves into a form that can be perceived, meaning heard, felt, or seen. Understanding of this came to me gradually and connected to a personal story. I have a friend who is a musician, extremely underground musician, and he has to work at a factory as a technician to make a living. He barely copes with the situation, being impulsive, depressive, and feeling that he's living not his life. Although from the outside his life seems to be beautiful and successful. Just a dream if you think. But because of his dissatisfaction, everything slowly ruins, including his relationship and himself. So I thought a lot about this, and I thought maybe this is what happens when a sensitive person is forced to work an ordinary job and not do art. So he was trying to figure out what was wrong with him, why life seemed so unbearable. And one day he stumbled upon an interesting diagnosis, BPD specifically, the symptoms of which seem to be inherent in the friend. The border personality disorder is characterized by feelings of emptiness, impulsiveness, emotional instability, disturbed patterns of thinking or perception, unstable relationships with frantic efforts to avoid real or imagined abandonment, self-harming behavior, and addictions, which also shows that their sensitivity is much higher than average. And then I started realizing
Edward Munch had it, and it seemed to be a frequent disorder of creative people. Immediately I thought of Kurt Cobain, actually all this 27 Club. Many tell about this inner emptiness or hollowness that can be fixed. Many sing about it and write about it like Hermann Hesse and Steppenwolf, even actors. This exact lack of personal borders allows them to be someone else for some time.
It's out of my jurisdiction to diagnose them, I just noticed the correlation.
But turns out that the correlation has already been studied not once, and one particular research of more than 1 million people from Karolinska Institute in Sweden showed that creativity is often part of a mental illness, with writers particularly susceptible. Among the most frequent mental illnesses of creators are bipolar, anxiety, or depressive disorders, addictions, and schizophrenia.
Indeed, there must be a reason to see the world differently, to make unique art.
If you look at Wes Anderson's movies, for example, how finely must he be feeling the world to create such masterpieces?
An interesting question is, what comes first, this hypersensitivity or the disorder? But let's leave the specific diagnosis aside and continue talking about the sensitivity in general. As you can imagine, or maybe know from your personal experience, being such a person is not easy, especially in our world that demands discipline, strength, persistence, and patience. When you feel and pay attention to literally everything happening around you, the motto, "I see the goal, not the obstacles," doesn't work. The world can simply break you.
Many become dependent on substances or alcohol because they can't cope in any other way. They try to dull their sensitivity.
People who choose to do art are often the most vulnerable.
According to Rick Rubin, who has worked with many famous musicians, some of them can't make themselves listen to their own voice.
Not once I and my artistic friends have noticed that one moment you look at your work and you think, wow, it's brilliant, it's genius. And an hour later maybe, or a day later, you look at it and you think like, wow, am I actually a talentless worm who doesn't deserve to do art at all? These self-doubts are often compounded by the fear of criticism, because when a person decides to express themselves through art and share it, they essentially expose their innermost self to the public. And you don't want to hear something bad about your sincere self, right?
So this exact sensitivity that allows a person to be creative is the same vulnerability that makes them more sensitive to judgment. It's a double-edged sword.
But the irony is that even positive feedback can feel undeserved or insincere, out of pity or duty, for example.
Thus, creators are kind of doomed to eternal torment of doubts and fears, constantly attacked by various triggers causing sensory responses.
This often adds anxiety or worry about what was and what will be, impulsiveness, and tendency to depression. They need to be treated carefully, first of all by themselves, with understanding, patience, and love. Yet they have the courage to share their creativity with the world. And sharing a result of creative work is an extremely challenging step for a sensitive person, as you can imagine from what has been said earlier.
But taking this step is very important because it's the only chance to earn a living from their craft and be recognized.
And it also benefits society. You could even say it's the foundation of its development.
If we choose to share what we make, our work can recirculate and become source material for others.
When an author shares their work, they lay a brick in the foundation of society, if you know what I mean. This is how development happens in all areas of life, in art, science, or social structure. Without knowing traditions, one cannot create a new thing, and one cannot break the rules without studying them.
Based on existing data, starting from the abstract expressions of ancient Greek scholars, researchers build knowledge, combine it, and derive new hypotheses. Everything around us is the result of such layering.
Speaking of a YouTube channel, and I consider it a form of creative work too, just look at the bloggers.
Many have videos on how to deal with criticism, perfectionism, and procrastination, and how to handle emotions and life in general.
First of all, to help themselves. I do that too. So no matter how strongly I am attacked by the thoughts that my videos won't be interesting to anyone, it's all waste of time and breath, it's not true. At least I want to believe that. At the very least, they are useful to me, as I repeatedly run these thoughts through my head while I'm working with the video, and they settle better. But even if this video is watched by 100 people and at least one of them finds emotional support or learns something new, it's all worth it. So I want to thank you for watching this video, and I hope to see you next time. Bye!